They say you don't realize you're in a cage if the bars are invisible. Looking back, I think mine weren't just invisible, they were padded, painted, pretty, and decorated with false closeness. I didn't feel trapped, I felt chosen. That's the trick. I met Maya at 19. Everyone had a Maya in college, the girl who walked into a room and rewrote its gravity. She wasn't the prettiest girl on campus or the smartest. She was something more dangerous. She was magnetic. She had this way of talking to you like she was letting you in on a secret, like she was giving you special access to a private world. It hit me hard, harder than I'd like to admit. From day one, I fell seamlessly into my role. The safe guy, the emotional janitor, the unpaid therapist, the backup generator from whenever the power went out in her world. If one of her exciting boyfriends inevitably cheated, ghosted, or needed space, my phone would blow up at 2 a.m. Not midnight, 2 a.m., the hour when loneliness hits hardest. I'd grab my keys without thinking and drive across town, hands shaking from fatigue and adrenaline, only to sit on her hardwood floor with takeout containers around us while she cried into my hoodie. She'd talk for hours about how she gave him everything, how she didn't deserve this, how she felt cursed, how she was done with men forever. I'd wrap a blanket around her shoulders and say all the things she needed to hear. You're not the problem. You deserve better. You're stronger than this. And every time, as she eventually fell asleep with her head on my shoulder, I'd imagine, stupidly, that maybe this moment meant something. Maybe she'd wake up and see that I was the guy who stayed, the guy who cared, the guy who wouldn't hurt her. But morning always came, and with it, the reset button. She'd wake up refreshed, thank me with a distracted smile, and then spend the rest of the day texting her ex or lining up the next walking red flag to date. I convinced myself that being her rock was noble, that my patience was a virtue, that loyalty would be rewarded. I didn't realize I was just a flashlight she took out of a drawer when the power went out, useful in the dark, forgotten in the light. The dynamic was absolute, stable, predictable. Maya was the main character, loud, chaotic, effortlessly adored, and I was the steady supporting cast, her loyal sidekick, her safety net, her emotional dumping ground. She never asked about my life, not because she didn't care, because it genuinely never occurred to her that I had one. If I tried to talk about my job, she'd nod vaguely and check her phone. If I mentioned my family or something I was excited about, she'd pivot the conversation back to her latest crisis within seconds. It wasn't a friendship, it was a service. What's worse is that part of me liked it. Not the exhaustion or the late nights, but the purpose. Being needed felt like being chosen. Being chosen felt like love, and I was too naive to know the difference. 10 years into this twisted friendship, the universe dropped a plot twist on me, a quiet one, subtle enough that I almost missed it. It was a rainy Tuesday in October, the kind where the sky looks like wet concrete and the air tastes like copper. I ducked into a coffee shop to escape a storm, shaking the water from my jacket like a stray dog. And behind the counter stood Sarah, not the type who makes a room pause, not a spotlight personality, just calm, a warm presence rather than a blinding one. She smiled, genuinely, not performatively, and asked, "Rough weather?" I laughed, and something about the way she listened when I answered felt foreign. We talked for an hour. She was curious, attentive. She asked questions about me, my job, my hobbies, my stupid dreams. She didn't check her phone once. The whole thing felt bizarre, like stepping into a parallel universe where I was allowed to exist as a person instead of a convenient tool. Walking out of that shop, I felt like someone had cracked a window open in a room I didn't know was suffocating me. For the first time in years, I took a full breath. Naturally, I went straight to Maya to share the news. She was my best friend, after all. I expected excitement, teasing, something positive, anything positive. We met for drinks that Friday. I was buzzing, nervous in a good way. When she asked how my week was, I finally had something to say. "Maya, I think I met someone." The smile on my face didn't even fade before hers did. She froze, martini halfway to her lips, eyes narrowing just enough to register on a Richter scale of subtle hostility. She didn't ask her name. She didn't ask what she was like. She didn't ask how I felt. Her first words? Just be careful, Liam. You know how desperate you get. I don't want you settling for some boring girl just because you're lonely. It hit like a punch wrapped in silk. I tried to defend Sarah. I showed her a picture. Maya glanced at it for half a second and wriggled her nose like I'd shown her a moldy sandwich. She looks intense, she said. Is she needy? She gives needy vibes. The irony almost knocked me off the bar stool. But I shrugged it off. I gave her excuses. I assumed she was having a bad day. I was wrong. This was the first shift, the first crack in the polished mask she wore. I didn't know it yet, but from that moment on, Maya wasn't losing a friend. She was losing a possession. And people like her don't lose things quietly. At first, nothing looked different on the surface. Maya didn't scream or accuse or beg. She adapted. She always did. The shift was quiet, calculated, and easy to miss if you didn't know what to look for. She started calling more often, not with genuine emergencies, but with perfect timing. The kind of timing that felt accidental until it happened enough times to stop being a coincidence. If I told her I had a date on Friday, she would suddenly have a crisis Friday night. Her car wouldn't start, she thought she heard someone outside her apartment, an ex texted her out of nowhere and she felt like she was spiraling. Every excuse was wrapped in just enough vulnerability to make me feel cruel for questioning it. The first time it happened, I canceled on Sarah without thinking. I told myself Maya needed me more in that moment. Sarah was understanding, but I could hear the disappointment she was trying to hide. The second time I canceled, I felt a twist in my stomach. The third time, I knew something was fundamentally wrong. That night, I was at dinner with Sarah, laughing, actually laughing, in a way that felt unfamiliar and honest. My phone started vibrating on the table, then again, 12 messages, 3 missed calls, all from Maya. I excused myself and stepped outside, already anxious, already apologizing before I even knew what I was apologizing for. When I called her, she didn't sound panicked, she sounded drunk and bored. She told me she was just sad and didn't want to be alone. She asked me to come over and watch a movie. That was it. No danger, no emergency, just entitlement. Something cracked open in my chest. Not anger, clarity. She wasn't reaching out because she needed help. She was reaching out because she couldn't stand the idea of me being happy without her. I went back inside and didn't leave with Maya that night. What the damage had already been done. Sarah saw it in my hesitation. She didn't accuse me or raise her voice. She just asked quietly, "Does she do this often?" I didn't answer fast enough. Sarah took my hand and said something I couldn't shake. There's a difference between relying on someone and possessing them. She doesn't act like your friend. She acts like she owns you. I tried to set boundaries the next day. I practiced what I would say in the car. I told myself this time would be different. When I got to Maya's place, she was fine, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, perfectly composed. I told her I had a girlfriend now and that I couldn't be on call for her anymore. She laughed, not angrily, amused, like I was a child playing dress-up. She said Sarah was changing me, that I used to be sweeter, more available. She twisted everything so cleanly that by the time I left, I was apologizing to her instead of standing up for myself. After that, she changed tactics. She stopped demanding and started inserting herself. She insisted on meeting Sarah, said she wanted to be included. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. We planned a dinner at my place. I didn't realize I was setting the stage for an ambush. Maya showed up dressed like a weapon, confident, polished, untouchable. From the moment she arrived, she controlled the room. Every story she told was designed to humiliate me or suggest a closeness that didn't exist. Inside jokes, half-truths, implied intimacy. When Sarah stepped away, Maya dropped the act and told me I looked bored, that I was forcing myself into something dull. The final blow was deliberate. She spilled red wine on Sarah's white blouse and didn't apologize. She just looked at me and whispered, "Oops." Sarah saw it then. The mask, the game. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She left. I chased her outside, but she was already gone. She told me she wasn't going to compete with someone who didn't even see me as my own person. She told me to call her when I grew a spine. I went back inside. Maya was humming, cleaning up the mess. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie, like nothing had happened. In that moment, something fundamental snapped. I finally saw her clearly, not as a friend, not as a complicated person, but as someone who needed to control in order to feel alive. I smiled and sat next to her. I told her she was right, that Sarah wasn't the one. She passed me the popcorn, satisfied, certain she had won. She had no idea the cage door had just opened. For the next 2 weeks, I became exactly who Maya needed me to be, or at least who she thought she needed. I answered every message immediately. I showed up early. I listened closely. I nodded in all the right places. I let her talk about Jax, the semi-pro surfer who treated her like a weekend distraction, and pretended not to notice how she only mentioned him to make me jealous. But I wasn't listening to support her anymore. I was listening to learn. I took mental notes, where her voice tightened, which compliments she fished for, what silences made her uncomfortable, what stories she told again and again because they made her feel important. I wasn't her friend now. I was a student. What I learned was simple and ugly. Maya didn't want love. She wanted orbit. She needed to be the center of every room and every relationship. If she wasn't desired, she felt erased. Control wasn't a choice for her, it was oxygen. The opportunity came on her birthday, a rooftop party, loud, flashy, crowded with people who felt more like an audience than friends. Maya floated through it, holding court, waiting for me to be nearby like a loyal shadow. I didn't come alone. I brought Chloe. Chloe was a problem Maya had never solved. They knew each other from college. Maya hated her with a quiet intensity that never faded. She called Chloe tacky, desperate, try-hard. But the truth was simpler. Chloe was immune to Maya, confident without approval, loud without apology, everything Maya pretended not to care about, but secretly feared. We walked in hand, late enough to be noticed. The shift was immediate. Maya froze mid-laugh, her champagne tipped, spilling onto the floor. I didn't rush to her side. I stayed right where I was, arm around Chloe's waist, whispering something that made her laugh loudly, freely, the kind of laugh that fills space instead of asking permission. For the rest of the night, I performed affection like a weapon. I got Chloe drinks, held her purse, looked at her like she mattered, always within Maya's line of sight. Maya unraveled slowly. She snapped at Jax. She hovered. She watched. Eventually, she stormed over, demanded to speak to me privately. The old version of me would have followed. I didn't. I smiled and said, "Not right now. We're having a great time." I told her to go enjoy her birthday and pointed out that Jax looked lonely, flirting with a waitress. Her face went pale. She looked from me to Chloe to Jax, and for the first time in 10 years, she wasn't in control of the narrative. She wasn't the center. She was watching from the outside. The night ended badly for her. Too much alcohol, a public argument, tears in the bathroom, whispers from guests. The image cracked. I watched from the bar as the queen fell apart without an audience to save her. Chloe nudged me and said I looked scary when I smiled like that. I told her Maya deserved it. But as I watched Maya crying alone, something in the victory curdled. She wasn't powerful. She was empty. The next morning, my phone was full of missed calls from Maya, rage, guilt, apology, desperation cycling every few minutes. Chloe slept beside me, unaware. I stared at the ceiling and realized something I didn't want to admit. I didn't actually like Chloe, not the way she deserved. I had used her, turned her into a tool, a shield, a mirror.
I had done to her what Maya had done to me for years. I had won the game, and I hated who I was becoming.
I met Maya one last time at the coffee shop where we used to sit for hours dissecting her life like it was a television show. She looked small, hungover, mascara smudged beneath tired eyes. The confidence that usually wrapped around her like armor was gone. She started talking the moment I sat down. Accusations first, then tears, then apologies, the full rotation. She asked how I could humiliate her like that. She asked why I brought Chloe. She asked if I had any idea how much I hurt her. I listened without interrupting. When she finally stopped, I took a sip of my coffee and told her I knew exactly how much it hurt. I told her that was the point. The words landed hard. She stared at me like the ground had shifted under her feet. I told her I didn't bring Chloe because I cared about her. I brought her because I knew it would break Maya's illusion of control. I told her she taught me how to do it, how to use people to regulate your ego, how to keep someone close not because you love them, but because you need them small. Fear crept into her expression. Not anger, fear. She reached for my hand and told me she was sorry, that she needed me, that we could go back to how it was. I pulled away. I told her we couldn't, that I wasn't that guy anymore, that I didn't like who I had become either, but at least I wasn't hers. I left her there, crying into her latte. I didn't go back to Chloe. I sent her a message later that day. I told her the truth, that I used her, that she didn't deserve that. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't try to keep her around. I let her go clean. Then I blocked Maya everywhere, every number, every account, every possible doorway. One message slipped through from a new account. You can't just leave like this. I read it. I didn't reply. 2 weeks later, I started therapy. No dramatic breakthrough, no cinematic healing, just uncomfortable honesty. I talked about how I confused being needed with being loved, how I built my identity around availability, how I stayed because being chosen felt safer than being alone. Healing was slow, quiet, boring. Some mornings I woke up angry, some days I felt hollow, but the noise in my head slowly faded. The constant pull, the guilt, the obligation, the cage. One morning I realized I hadn't thought about Maya in days, not with anger, not with nostalgia, not at all. The absence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like space. I didn't get the girl. I didn't get revenge. I didn't win anything people clap for. But I got my life back. And this time, I plan to live it without asking permission.